Now that you have built a form or two, it's time to talk about sharing and cloning forms. It is important to understand the difference between the two and to know when to use each one. Let's get started by clicking on the Forms tab at the top of the page and then clicking on Forms in the menu on the left. You'll notice that there's an action column beside the form name, and there's a selection of links that allow you to perform different tasks related to a form. Sharing a form to one or more groups or programs means that the form itself will exist in each group that you choose to share it with. Edits made to a shared form will be reflected in all groups that share the form. So it's best to avoid group-specific evaluation questions on forms that will be shared and to manage edits centrally. One of the benefits of using a shared form is to expand reporting capabilities across groups that are implementing the form in evaluation workflows. When we click on the Share link in the Action column, a new page will open and display a list of groups. Check the boxes next to the group names that you'd like to share the form with. If the form has already been shared to one or more groups, you'll notice a gray check mark next to those group names. Once you've scrolled all the way through the list, adding check marks to all the groups you need to share the form with, you can click the Share Form button to save your choices. Click on Back to Forms to return to the Forms page. After the form has been shared, the groups that now have access to the form will need to add it to all evaluation workflows that are relevant. Cloning a form creates a copy that is standalone, which allows for edits and/or revisions to be made to the new form without affecting the original form that it was cloned from. A form can be self-cloned within a group or cloned into another group. The main purpose for cloning a form is to create a new version of the same form where you will make edits or revisions that change the context of the data being collected. This way, you don't have to recreate the form from scratch. You can use a copy or clone of the old version and just make the necessary changes to just those questions that need editing. It is a recommended best practice to make these kinds of changes just prior to the start of a new academic year in order to maintain the integrity of reporting from one academic year to another, and so you don't have to report on two forms every time you run a report. When we click on the clone link, a new page will open, and the title of the form will automatically add the word new in front of the form name. You can either change the name of the form in the text field or edit it after cloning it. Just be sure to click outside the text field to save those changes in either scenario. Keep in mind, when creating a new version of a form, it's a good idea to include a version number or the year the form started being used while keeping the name otherwise the same. That way, you can more easily find the form you want from the list, as well as be able to easily distinguish newer versions of older forms when comparing reports in the future. Choose to self-clone the form and/or clone into other groups by adding a checkmark in the appropriate box or boxes. Then click on Clone Form at the bottom of the page. Click on Back to Forms to return to the form list, and click on Edit beside the newly cloned form to make all your editorial changes. Lastly, a very important step. Be sure to replace the old form with the new form in the relevant evaluation workflow. It's also wise to add inactive to the old version of the form name and deactivate the old form if necessary. If you clone forms to another group, be sure to let the admin for that group know the next steps to follow. If you use our grades module and the form in question is connected to grade sheets, be sure to let us know so we can help you by creating new grade sheets that connect to the new version of the form. As you can see, there are a lot of details that rely on sending out and completing the correct version of a form. Usually, administrators will review their forms prior to the new year in order to determine if a new form is needed. Hopefully, this proactive task will eliminate the need to have two versions of the same form within one academic year. That's all for sharing and cloning. If you're unsure of which option to use, please submit a support ticket with the details of how the form will be used or changed, and we'll be happy to advise.